I'm Kiran Manral. I live in Bombay. I was born and brought up in Bombay. My parents are from Bombay. I come from a very unconventional marriage. My parents were in love for many, many years before they got married, and that's because they were interfaith. My father was a Muslim, my mother was a Catholic, and when they finally gathered the nerve to get married, they were already hitting 30, so I was a late baby. And childhood in Bombay back then in the 1970s was very pleasant, very nice. One grew up doing things like going to the park, which I think most children of today have it as a rarity. Going to the beach every Sunday, watching first day, first show at the cinema halls. That was the only entertainment we had. And, watching television, Doordarshan was all we had, and 2 channels of Doordarshan. So what did that leave me with? That left me with books to amuse myself. I grew up as a bookworm, as an inveterate reader. I was terrible. I would read under the bed sheets with a torch on. I would ruin my eyes completely and end up with what we call soda bottle glasses because I read so much and my number was so immense that my face would be like a distorted mini face behind my the lenses of my specs. And I was very young. I was still in primary school back then. I was lucky. I think I was blessed because I had parents who encouraged this reading habit. They did not force me to be an outdoorsy kind of girl. I was a tomboy, all right, but they indulged my reading. My happiest moment would be sitting in a bookstore. Every Sunday was bookstore day. So I would go to a bookstore and my father was working as an officer at the State Bank of India. But he never grudged me my books. I would go and I was allowed to buy as many books as I liked. And that was a blessing. That was how books became my first love, I think. And from the books came writing and to cut a long story short, my father passed away. I finished my 10th boards and the time came to enter college. And I had decided I was going to take literature as my major. Back then, when one passed from your 10th and if you got over a distinction, which was 75 plus, you went in for science. There was no debate about it. So I happily put in my form at Mitibai and took arts. So for a week, there was like, a mourning house when people come to condole you, the family. There was mourning house in my house because the friends and well-meaning relatives would drop in and say, why did you let her take arts? What will she do with arts? What career is there in arts? What future is there in arts? To my mother's credit, she never paid any heed to that. And she said, do what you must. So I graduated with English honors. I studied for my master's in English, but somehow never got around to doing giving my exams for various reasons. And I began work. I first began work as a copywriter with a very small agency called Alliance Advertising. And I did a lot of really cheesy ads, cheesy print ads for cookers, for gas stoves, for all that. And I think my crowning moment was at some client meeting where everybody was acting very puffed up and important. I burst into laughter. And the client got very annoyed and said, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? And then I realized, advertising is not for me. I cannot keep a straight face in client meetings. I moved on to journalism. Luckily for me, the Asian Age was just opening up and I had done a bit of freelancing for the Times of India group while I was still in college, and I knew the senior journalist who was going to be the Bombay bureau head, that's Rauf Ahmed, and I joined the Asian Age. From there, I went on to Dalal Street Journal, who was planning to open a television channel called DSG TV. That didn't take off, but I worked there for a while, then went on to the Times of India, also worked there for a while. Oh God. So I worked a bit in journalism, basically, cosmopolitan features editor. Then I gave it all up because I was married and married my college sweetheart. And I wanted to have a baby. I was hitting 30. And the baby was not happening. So for a woman to conceive, the process is very time consuming if you want to go in for artificial reproductive therapy. And no employer is going to give you the time off you need to go through that. So I had to quit, which I did, and I had my baby. But itchy fingers, you're sitting nursing the baby, wondering what to do. So I started blogging. My husband had also opened an advertising, actually a media agency at that point, but then I joined up with him and started a creative department. So I was heading that at my own time. Blogging became, I think, the fulcrum of my post motherhood career, I would say, because with blogging, I reached out to an entire community of women and mothers, and they formed a sisterhood of sorts. They recognized my voice, and they recognized what I was trying to say, that motherhood need not be on a pedestal that we placed it on, that it is ugly, it is grim, it is, there are times when you will be in the depths of depression. It isn't all baby powder and, cooing babies and gurgling babies. Of course, that happens. That is wonderful. That is something that is definitely a part of motherhood, but there's also the dark side which we don't really talk about. And I think I put that very, very honestly down in my blog. The blog became one of the top motherhood blogs in India, and it was there for quite a while until I decided to stop it. And from there, I got the encouragement and the strength and the courage to two very dear friends, one Parul Sharma and the other Priyanka Chaturvedi. Parul is an established author. She was already two books old when she sort of prodded me and to write my first book. Priyanka, of course, we all know her as the Rajya Sabha MP right now, and she's a deputy leader with Shiv Sena. But this was before she had gotten into politics, and she was like me. We were school age moms, and she also encouraged me to take writing seriously and to start writing a book. That's how the first book came along. From there, the other books came along, and I never really stopped. I think through my writing and through the fact that I reinvented myself constantly with blogging, with going into social media. Then there was a phase when I was India cultural lead and trend spotter with Icon Culture US, which is now Gartner Icon Culture. To doing qualitative research with Vector Insights, where I was senior consultant. My career has always been about reinventing myself and doing something different. So I don't know whether you would say it's, a fool's rush and where angels fear to tread, or it's just not considering consequences. But it has always been about jumping first and then finding my feet later throughout my career. So that basically has been my story. I'm 14 books down now. My latest is called Rising. It's about 30 women who changed India. And I think I'll be writing a few more too after this. um, I think the fact that you're always an outsider, Supreet, when you are not part of a particular community or a religion completely, your perspective is always that of an outsider, and that makes you observe more keenly. Because no matter what you do, you're not going to fit in completely. There will always be that little barrier because thankfully my parents never really compelled me to follow any religion. So I was not brought up with any religion. I was brought up without religion, but I was given all the religious texts to read. I was given exposure to everything. I was taken to all the places, the holy places of all the religions, the churches, the temples, the mosques, everywhere. There was nothing, the Gurudwaras also. I was allowed to go everywhere. I was taken everywhere. I was exposed to how all the religions shaped up, who were the prophets, who were the holy men, who were the seers, what are the festivals. And I think we lived in more innocent times back then, if I may say so, where we lived in a community where all religions interacted. We had, Maharashtrian neighbors, we had Sindhi neighbors, we had people from the North Indian plains, we had South Indians as neighbors. So it was like every festival was celebrated with gusto. We went to each other's home. There was none of this, if I may say, ghettoizing that we see now. So at the end of it all, I was very clear that I did not want to be bracketed into religion. I loved the divine, but I did not want the, as somebody wiser said, the bureaucracy of a religion between me and the divine. So that's how I am even today. So that I think has really shaped me, that I believe in a power, but I don't believe in religion per se. And I think that also informs my writing to a certain extent because it gives you a perspective as to humankind being an amorphous whole, not bracketed into little subdivisions. Are my characters also unconventional? I would think so. I have written the conventional 20 somethings who are yearning to fall in love and get married. I have also written a 78-year-old who's waiting to die. I have also written a 40 something who is who has a mental ailment and who's in a dysfunctional marriage. I've written about a 30 something who's a widow and who is grappling with all sorts of issues over the early passing away of her husband. So my characters, I think, are unconventional in that sense. I think I like to write about women in every stage of their life. I think for me, I would say leaving the Times of India in my professional life, not joining, mind you, leaving, was a great uh, milestone of sorts because it read me, when you are in an organization as big as that, you have the wall of that organization behind you. When you go out, doors open, your name is known. All these things are you take as a given. But to rebuild yourself from scratch and be known as Kiran Manral and not Kiran Manral from the Times of India is something that I am very proud of. I think after I left, it took me some while to find my feet and to, find who I am without the backing of an organization. And that I think a lot of us really hesitate to take the plunge because we don't know who we are without our organizations. So it takes courage. I hats off to everyone who leads a very I have friends who have left as VPs and as presidents of companies and have left from boards to start their own thing, and hats off to them because I can only imagine the courage that takes. Personally, also, I think uh, blogging, learning how to blog and learning how to make a community of a sisterhood of sorts. That is something that helped me in my journey because you realize you're not alone. And also these women who were bloggers became my cheerleaders. They became women who would be my friends and root for my book whenever it came. So one second, sorry. So becoming a blogger, I think, was another professional milestone, which really, really, really helped me find my voice, helped me find what I wanted to write about, what was important to me, and what kind of things I should focus on. Also, courage that people would want to read me. That came from my blogging. Who have been my influencers? I'm going to be very trite and predictable and say my mother. In the sense, she is not a woman who reads, but she realized that I was a girl who writes and a girl who reads. And somewhere in my childhood, I think I said that I'm going to be a writer. She always held me to it. So every birthday, she would be, "Where is your book?" And I would go, "Mom, I'm at the Times of India. I'm very important. I'm very busy. I can't be, doing this." And then I'm at Cosmopolitan. I can't be writing books. And then I'm having a baby. I have no time to write books. And so this continued every year until one fine year, she tells me, "Baby, you're going to turn 40 in your next birthday. Where the hell is your book?" And that really hit me. I think if she hadn't nagged me, I would have never. So she got me started on this path to writing. And I, teachers are really important. So I still remember my 10th grade teacher, Mrs. Shirley D'Souza. I forget her surname. But she took an essay I had written and she told the rest of the class that, "Please read Kiran's essay. She's written so wonderfully." And that was the first moment I felt perhaps that maybe I write well. It was just that gesture. And she told me in my board, for my board, she warned me. She said, "Kiran, please write simply. Please don't use the language you use in your regular essays. Please write simple English or you'll be marked down." And of course, I didn't pay heed. So I got 56 in English in my board exams, which was the lowest of all my subjects. Then college also, I had a professor called Srilekha Bose, who was wonderful and who had very high expectations of me. And I don't think I could ever live up to the kind of expectations she had of me. I don't think she even remembers me now. But These two teachers have really stayed in my mind as the ones who first showed me that perhaps I had some potential as a writer. And professionally, who else? There's Ralph Ahmed, who was the editor of Filmfare, who became the bureau chief of Asian Age. Was very, very encouraging, and he mentored me very sweetly, encouraged me, helped me find my feet in the world of journalism. Hutokshi Doctor at the Times of India was very patient with me when I made all kinds of silly mistakes on the editing page. And this was a Sunday review. It went out to so many millions and millions, and she never once yelled me out when I deserved yelling out. So I'm grateful for that. There's been many. Anil Dharkar at the DSJ, he was a wonderful man, kind, gentle, well informed, and a wonderful mentor. So these people have been great, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the other major influences: P.G. Woodhouse, Haruki Murakami, Terry Pratchett, all the people you read who stay in your head, Stephen King. You write on the shoulders of these giants. Stephen King said something very important. I think I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect that to be a writer, the only thing you should have is the ability to remember each and every scar, the story behind each and every scar. I think this ultra sensitivity is what is important as a writer. And I lost my father when I was very young, Supreet. And when I was 8 or 9, I think, and when your circumstances change very suddenly, and you suddenly, the world is a very cruel place to young girls who don't have the backing of a male parent or male brother. I was an only child. So one learns very quickly, and one becomes hardened, and one gets a lot of scars. But I'm glad that I saw adversity at that point, and I'm glad that I was able to see the true faces of people at that time, because these are lessons that you will never learn in normal circumstances. And when you're pushed into that, you learn to read the world around you, and that comes in handy as a writer also, because you learn to read people, memories, instances. So the fact that I think I became an observer, Supreet, when I would travel. I would travel from Bandra to Goregaon every day to school and back by BST bus. That was because my school was in Bandra, and then we moved to Goregaon after my father passed away. But my mother didn't change my school because I was already in, the secondary section, and I was like, I don't want to leave my friends. And you know how children are, I don't want to make new friends. So okay, I traveled. I think traveling to Bandra from Goregaon every day, twice a day, helped me become an observer of people. I traveled in BST bus, and it was a journey of an hour or an hour back then because traffic wasn't that bad. And I learned to look at people and try to imagine what their stories were. Why was this lady going so early? Was she a teacher? Was she a municipal worker? Had she had kids at home? Why was this gentleman so anxious all the time? So I would make little backstories for them. I think that really helped me. Those experiences really helped me train myself to become an observer. I think you need to train yourself to observe. And that was my training ground, the VST bus, 201 to be specific. I actually honestly feel failure is a training ground and success is temporary. This is what I believe. We've been through cycles. I have been through phases in my life when I've been extremely poor, extremely wealthy. And this has come and gone, and I've seen it as cyclical, it comes and goes. So there will be a phase where, you're doing very well, and there'll be a phase where there'll be struggle and strife. The thing is to remember that this too shall pass. The good times will pass and the bad times will pass. And if you're too hung up on either of them, it becomes very tough to move on when the next phase comes. Nothing is permanent. Nothing and no one is permanent. I think that's what failure and success really mean to me. Enjoy it while it lasts, the good times, and know that the bad times will pass. I would tell myself? That's a very, very, deep question, because at different phases in life, you think about different things. When I was a young girl in school, I would tell myself to be more confident about myself, to know that I was infinitely more capable of what I believed I was, and to not let others not to let criticism affect me as much as it did then. But then you're very thin-skinned at that point, right? Everything affects you. I think that's a phase you need to go through, and and in your head, then you continue to be this fat, pimply girl until you're 50. You're still struggling with that self-image. So that's a phase. When I was in my 20s, I think I would ask my 20 something to be more selfish, because you try to people please and you will never please anybody, and the one you end up hurting the most is yourself. So do what you please. Don't be rude, don't be mean, don't be impolite, don't be nasty, but do exactly as you please, because people will not appreciate when you go out of your way to do stuff for them. You just end up doing more and more and bending backwards and backwards and backwards until you sort of lose your own balance. So if you want to do something, go out there and do it. If there's something you don't like, say I don't like it. If there's something that's not acceptable to you, don't keep quiet and let it pass. I think we've been brought up in ways to shrink ourselves as women, and we carry that shrinkage well unto middle age. It's only when we hit middle age that we stop giving a damn. We should stop giving a damn earlier, because then we really shrink, constrict ourselves so much that it becomes difficult to unfurl again. So when I see the young girls today, they're wonderfully confident. I wish I had that confidence that they do. Far be it for me to give advice, because everyone has their own life journey and life path, and people are very different. And the struggle is your own. No one can struggle for you, and no one can do what you can do, and you cannot do what others can do. So I would think first and foremost, don't compare yourself. We do that a lot. She's thinner, she's more beautiful, she's got a wonderful family, she's got loads of money, she's gone to the Ivy League college, she's done this, she's done that, she's got advantages that I don't. It may be true, but you may have a lot of things that she may envy, which you don't realize. So don't beat yourself up in comparison with anyone. Be yourself and find out what makes you you. Your biggest and toughest journey is within yourself. And a lot of us don't have the courage to go within ourselves to find out what is important to us, what do we stand for, what are our values, what do we need, kind of work is so important to us that it is as important as breathing. I think that is important, to go within yourself and find out what you stand for and what is important to you, and not to get swept away by what everyone tells you should be doing or what others are doing around you. To find your purpose, to find what you are and who you are and what is your purpose. These are the three most important things that will sort you towards doing what you have to do. If you have purpose, if you know who you are, and if you know what you want to go towards, then you're an unstoppable force. But if you're constantly going to be swaying by what you think the market trend is, what my father wants, my mother wants, my husband wants, then it's just going to be, you're going to be all over the place. Secondly, I would say ask for help. You find it very difficult to ask for help. And 10 may say no, one may say yes. But unless you've asked, you never know. So don't be afraid, shy, or hesitant about asking for help. But don't ask it in the sense of entitlement. I get a lot of the entitled asking, which, immediately puts you off. Ask gracefully, ask with respect, ask with consideration for the other person's time and space of mind. And don't be a constant taker when you're asking for help. Also give back, because people like to learn as well from you. So do it in a way that you're asking, but you're also willing to give something in return, maybe of your time, effort, appreciation, something. What else can I tell young girls? They seem to know it all, very honestly. But I think it's just that, know yourself, know your purpose, ask for help, get out there and do as you please. And most importantly, Be kind. That you can't ever plan what you're destined to be. That life will happen to you and life will take all the twists and turns, and you have to go with the flow. You can't resist it, you can't fight it, you can't plan, you can't decide what you want to be or who you want to be. If there is a purpose to your life, you will find it. And if there is a destination you have to go towards, you will go towards it like water. There is, I wouldn't say it's all predestiny, but there is something called predetermination to a certain extent. If you go with the flow, it will be helpful. If you resist it, you'll find it tougher. I'm not saying like if your predestiny is telling you be a criminal, go ahead. Of course, you resist that very strongly. But you go with what life is moving you towards, and you will see the signs. You will see something, you will have dreams, or you will meet the same people repeatedly, or things will keep popping up in your, not your feed in your life. Your feed is very predetermined by your algorithms, and they're listening into you, the devices. So don't go by that. So life has taught me that, there will be signs, there will be indications, there will be aha moments in your head, and to just trust your gut instinct and to go with what feels right. I think our generation grew up sustainable. We are the generation that, reused clothes until we tore them and then made them pocha. And we have paper bags under our beds, plastic bags we reuse and reuse. We have stashes of stuff. I think we are sustainable as a generation. We've grown up being sustainable. This generation has not learned sustainability like we have. So that is ingrained to me, much to the embarrassment of my child, because, I will save something. He grows out of his t-shirt, I will wear it. He grows out of something, I will say, I'll give it to somebody. We won't hand me downs. We're very efficient, sustainable people. What else? We tend to recycle a lot of stuff. All the normal things. My carbon footprint isn't that huge, hopefully. Well, all the little things we do, I don't know if it is enough, but one does what one can. One has recyclable, one has gray water in parts of the complex. One reuses filter, the RO water for the plants. One does the little things. Is that enough? I don't know. But I think every little step counts. So one does what one can do. And one talks about things, one carries bags when one goes shopping and all that kind of thing. It's not something that's huge, and I can't say I'm doing a movement or I'm doing anything, but if we all do our bit, I think we'll make a little bit of a difference, I hope. For the longest time, I had a column in the DNA called Storm in a Sea Cup. It was about middle-aged women and the sexuality. So I think I hoped with that column, I gave a lot of women to talk about themselves as sexual beings, even after they've hit the age where everybody thinks you should be on the shelf and, drying out and not really put to pasture. You're not a sexual being anymore. And that is one thing I think that's very important to me, that this ageism in society, it's, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You only realize it as you grow older, but it's there and it's very, very rampant. And it's something we don't even realize how ageist we are in various things. So that's what I think, talking about older women in my books, writing about them, writing columns such as these. I think I want to redress the fact that women after a certain age are not to be ignored and not to be put aside. We're powerful, we're wonderful, we've come into our own, we're strong, sensual, vibrant beings. And by just looking at us from a reproductive function is absolutely evil. So that's something I think is very important to me. And secondly, I think I like to talk about all facets of women. So my latest book, Rising, is about 30 women who have changed India. So the list, of course, is not definitive. We could never have a definitive list of 30 women. There are like hundreds of women more out there who have done a lot for India, and who could have been in the book and should be in subsequent books of if they ever happen. But in this book, what I did try to do was to talk about the known names as well as the unknown names. There are the known names, Lata Mangeshkar, P.T. Usha, Mary Kom. but you may not know a Harita Cordial, or you may not know a Tessie Thomas, or may not know so many other women who have done wonderful things. They aren't on your radar. So I've tried to give cross section of women. So use the known names to reel them in to a certain extent, and then talk about the women we don't know. So young girls who read the book, I do hope they do. If they find even one story echoing with them and saying she could do it, I definitely can. If she came from those circumstances and she did what she did, what do I have as an excuse not to do what I can do? So that's what I hope this book can do. The fact that the buck stops with me, to be very honest, that's I think the biggest motivator, because I really can't blame my failures or my lack for anything on anyone else, because it's up to me whether I write or choose not to write, or I choose to slack for the day. It's just me who will have to face the brunt. So that's I wouldn't say a motivator, but very honestly, when I think all of us, when we come to a certain age, you realize that there are no more excuses anymore. You either do it or you don't. And it's up to you. So you can't blame your parents, you can't blame your situation, you can't blame life, and you can't blame anybody else. Because if you haven't done it so far, then God help you, you're not going to do anything any further. So when that realization dawns on you, and when that there's no one to give excuses to anymore because it's your loss, then you start really hauling yourself up by the pants and getting down to work every day. Second, I don't even have the motivation of a salary because I work for myself. Very often it's like, I have to go to the job, I have EMIs to pay. And that's important. I mean, that's what pushes us to do stuff we might not really like. But I have nothing. I just have to make sure that I do my right things. So I have no excuses. I don't know if I have energy. I'm very slothful, to be honest. I'm terribly slothful. I struggle hard to get my 10,000 steps in every day. And I generally, I'm very happy if I take an auto ride somewhere and half my steps get done on the auto ride. No, but seriously, what do I do for myself? I think I consume more stories, either through watching or reading. I think I feed on stories, so whether it's a K-drama or a Netflix series or a book or a series or some non-fiction as well. I just like to consume information. So that keeps me constantly going. And then there's always that rabbit hole of the internet. If you find some factoid that you find interesting and you go into finding more and more about it, you just fall into that rabbit hole. And I think this curiosity is what keeps me going. It's this constant curiosity to find stuff that I will have absolutely no use for in the immediate future, but somehow will surface in some book, sometime in some writing. I don't have very lofty ambitions, but I hope that 10, 20 years down the line, my books will be read, my books will be the subject of maybe thesis. They are, some of them are already part of somebody's dissertation. And I hope that they're still read and reread and reread, because I think that's the true test of a book, that if it is timeless and if generations after you can read your book and still relate to you. I could say I want to be in Parliament in the Rajya Sabha. I could say I want a Booker Prize. I could say that I want a Sahitya Akademi Award. I'd love to have those. I'm not saying no, but I think my true longing would be that my books live on after me and they're read after me. One fun thing. I think I want to travel the world. I think I have not had enough travel experiences. So earlier it used to be I want to go and see the 7 wonders of the world. Now my scope has increased terribly to I want to travel the world and I want to visit every country in the world. I don't know if that would happen, but never say never. I still might. But I really want to tell all women to please start being selfish. I learned this very late and I realized this very late when half my life was over. So I want to tell women, Stop worrying about who you will offend. Stop worrying about, not pleasing everybody. Stop putting yourself on the back burner. Put yourself first. Your life will change. I only realized this once I turned 40 and I began putting myself first. So do it earlier and you can conquer the world.